diving into different realms, which is why you're actually here today, is to share your knowledge and value with us in the mom community. Because I think sex, relationships, articulating your value, I keep going back to this, but that's really just like your self-worth, and like putting yourself first is something we talk about a lot, but like, what does that actually mean? And you guys do it in such a fun, hilarious sometimes, and really meaningful way. And I think that's kind of what I want to showcase today. So yeah, so thank you for being here. So Rosa, we worked together a while ago. Rhea, you guys are sisters, so two sisters talking about all this is super cool. I have a bunch of questions I want to start with, but I kind of wanted to just, why are you guys here today? Like, why are you here with the mom community? I've partnered with you guys for a couple of reasons, but I want to hear like from you guys what's bringing you to this conversation today.
Yeah, well, I think what you described about our podcast is totally true. So it's kind of been like a journey for us. Essentially, we did start we just want to share our stories about sex and be really open and kind of like radical in that way. And over time, we've gotten the chance to really hone in on our core values and what is really important to us in like sharing with others. And this timing has been amazing because our messages are so aligned right now with the Mom Club. Yeah. When it comes to like gratitude practice, affirmations, really knowing your value, asking for what you need, like getting help and ideas from your village, and knowing your worth as a woman, and really stepping into that power, being an entrepreneur and what that takes, and all of the discussions that go around with that, as well as intimacy. What does that mean? So I hear you talking about that on your other lives, and I hear you discussing that in your stories. So it really feels like we're kind of like aligned in that way, and really good timing. We're still, like me and Rhea, we still want to talk about sex. We still want to be like radical and do fun stuff. But we realize that there's a foundation that needs to be built before you can really achieve those goals of like the vision that you have for having amazing sex. Like, you have to have the best, most strongest foundation. And you have to understand what these words mean. Like intimacy, we don't know what it is. Yeah. So that's what we kind of do with our podcast, is we look at words that have been, even the word like erotic, right? These things have been like said over and over.
It's so true. There's these like buzzwords. I just think about my experience. You guys asked me, what does intimacy mean to me? I was like dumbfounded for like 2 minutes. I'm like, it means, and I think that's probably a normal reaction, but I thought about it afterwards that I actually don't really know what that means. And since then have really learned about it and can articulate, I think, a little bit better now, like what that actually means to me and my relationship and my worth. And understanding and being educated on such a simple term is huge, because then you can go about your relationship and being intimate in a more intentional way.
And I think one thing I like about the Mom Club too, and like, it's important to have these communities for women. Like, I'm very like supporting women, even though I'm not a mom, is like very top priority for me. Because what I recognize is like, without these communities where you're talking to each other about these things, you might just not know. You might have never asked yourself these questions. And these communities are so valuable because you can sort of share your experiences. And that's how women stay safe. That's
safe and connected.
Stay connected, feel powerful again, remember about their value, right? And that's, you know, for me personally anyways, I get the most support from the communities where it's all women, right? So I think this is a really, for me, that's why I like being a part of this Mom Club, right? Because it's like a way to support women.
We're like
the way to get like members. We talked last week about love languages. I think that's a perfect way to lead. What are the 5 love languages? We hear it as a buzzword. What are they?
Yeah. So
tell us about them.
5 love languages: physical touch, acts of service, quality time, gifts, like receiving gifts or giving gifts, and words of affirmation.
And we should, like, I think we should also give a couple examples of each.
Yeah, please.
So, because I want you first talk about the physical touch thing.
Let's actually take it a step further back. I told the moms last week, we're going to be talking about love languages, realizing afterwards that I actually didn't know all the 5 out loud. I just knew mine. So let's start with the foundation. Like, what are love languages in terms of like, what is it about? What is this idea? And why is it important? And then let's maybe get into those 5, if that's cool with you guys. Yeah. Start from ground zero.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to?
Well, I mean, I think that love languages is, I mean, it's a very small book, and I recommend. It's kind of like interesting because a man wrote it, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of like mansplaining something that we probably already know deep down inside. But what it is like love is like just the way that we have these love languages is just another form of communication. Mm-hmm. And so everyone has a different language, and why it's important to know what your personal love language is and what someone else's is because you could have been speaking like a different love language and not be understanding for like 20 years.
Totally.
Yeah, right? So like an example of that would be like, you know, a husband, and he's washing his wife's car, and he's
for 20 years,
and he's like, oh my God, why doesn't she appreciate this? Like, why doesn't she love it when I do this? Like, look how much I care about her. But for her, acts of service is not her love language. So it's just like a miscommunication. And when you don't speak each other's love languages, that's where you get this resentment, you get these walls built up. So having these conversations about love languages really opens up a communication so you can see where you guys are at and sort of learn who each other are. And then once you're speaking each other's love languages, and your cup is you're starting to fill up your cup, right? And you don't feel the resentment. You feel like your pussy wants to.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? You really want to once you start feeling love in the way that feels good to you personally, it really fills you with joy, and you're able to give that back to your partner. You know?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I guess it's not just like acts of physical love, right? It's not, because you're going to break down the 5 here. So it's like any way that you can fill your cup or feel valued and feel like that person sees you and can speak to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like being acknowledged. And so, physical touch. Physical touch does not mean sex. So if your partner, if your husband, like straight up, if your husband tells you that his love language is physical touch, tell him to pick another one. Because seriously, because it's not that it's not valid, but that I think a lot of men are like, I want physical touch, aka they want to get in bed with you naked and have sex. And that is not what this is about. So physical touch would be like, you know, like a massage on the shoulders, long hugs, cuddling, anything that's non-sexual physical touch. That is what we're encouraging when you first start talking about this for physical touch. It's non-sexual physical touch, like holding hands while walking down the street.
Yeah,
that would
rubbing on your back, like rubbing his back,
cuddling,
like making dinner, cuddling.
And like a lot of people, they don't. That's not their love language. So there's a way of that you are inclined to receive, and that you need to receive to feel valued, and there's a way that you're inclined to give. Like for example, whenever I'm crazy about a guy, I want to give him a gift. I'm like, oh, maybe I should bring a gift on the date. Oh, maybe his mom needs something from Sage
So that's your personal way of giving love.
Yes. However, that might not be how the last guy I dated, he was like, I hate getting gifts. It's so embarrassing to me. It does not make me feel loved or valued. Right? So great. I have to kind of like push away that first inclination, but be mindful of it and know like, oh, I might be liking this guy because I kind of want to give him some gifts right now.
Right.
So receiving gifts, if that really fills up your cup, that could be anything. It could be your coffee. It could be a Chanel bag. It could be anything in between. But it is like it's quite romantic.
Yeah.
Right? It's a traditional kind of romantic role of giving.
Right.
It could, right? Like I know there's one woman I follow. Her husband leaves her like Louis Vuitton shoes on the pillow as a surprise.
Oh my God.
So that would really fill up her cup if she
beautiful.
likes to see it.
Yeah.
And I'm a gift person. Like I love gifts, and there is a bit of shame involved with that. And I think that's one that's really hard to ask for, because men have a way of sort of making you feel bad about wanting gifts, even though listen, go read the book. That's what I would say to my husband.
That's the thing.
This man is telling you.
There's a scale.
But
there's like a spectrum, I think. And I do agree with that. I think that like when a lot of people hear giving gifts, and you just brought up like Chanel bag, like that, someone gave me a Chanel bag, that's cool, but like I don't really use Chanel bags, and like I don't feel like I would use it, but I would really value a really good sandwich. And I know that sounds weird, but I really like sandwiches, and that's as much as a gift, giving gifts isn't maybe my primary love language. That was one way I felt like Danny showed a lot of love to me. He would make me like little charcuterie boards. He'd make me sandwiches, and like that gave me heart eyes. Like
that's a bit of an act of service.
Yeah, so
right?
that
Act of service, and that's our number
like
one, both of ours, love language.
Yeah, like a more attainable like form of gift giving would be like, you just don't come empty-handed on a date. Like, for example, like, you know, when you go to someone's home and you don't arrive empty-handed. Yeah. Like, you can literally bring them a loaf of bread. You can bring them a little stuffed animal. You can bring them like a little trinket. Like, I thought of you and I wanted to give this to you. Like, oh, I noticed you were low on whatever it may be, like flowers, right? So this is like, you're bringing something to them. You don't want to arrive empty-handed. So it could be from 10 cents, thoughtful, to all the way to whatever, a card. Right. But so those would be some examples. And it can be a lot more like approachable. It doesn't have to be a Chanel bag.
Yeah.
But then acts of
service.
Say,
like everyone's different, right? So like a Chanel bag, that's great if you're talking to a group of people who love Chanel bags. So there you go. Yeah. So I think that removing the shame, you're so right about that.
Yeah, there is definitely shame. And then also this is about getting to know someone, these conversations. So you're absolutely right. Everyone is going to be so different. So the partner hopefully has enough respect to really get to the bottom of it. Okay, you like gifts? What kind of gifts? How often do you like to receive them? You know what I mean? Because everyone is going to be so particular, right?
Yeah.
Acts of service.
So we talked about physical touch, non-sexual physical touch, and giving gifts, which is, you know, not showing up empty-handed, trinkets, souvenirs, whatever it may be. And then there's acts of service. So an act of service could be like a lot of times it has to do with like cleaning the house or cooking for somebody.
Thinking of the mom realm, it's really like helping get the kids ready for school in the morning, doing bedtime, things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I confused the two at the beginning. It definitely acts of service is what I'm talking about.
Totally. And it could be very like, because again, that's acknowledging what you're going through, right? Yeah. So that is a really like quick shortcut to saying, I see what you're doing and I want to help. Right. And that can be very impactful, especially for a mom or someone who has a lot on their plate. So that might be a big one for some of the moms. Right. The next one is words of affirmation, and this one's mine. I noticed that some people might be like, well, a little bit of all of them, but there's always one that just fits the best and just makes you feel the best about yourself, and that you like that really stays with you as like a form of like joy and value. And words of affirmation for me, and it could be like, hey, I noticed that you did this. Thank you so much. I think you're amazing. Yeah. Or it could be like, he's writing me poetry. Like it could be, again, there's a spectrum, like you said.
And is words of affirmation, is that writing, or is it more verbally out loud?
It could be either. Text messages. Like I mean, it could be like, wow, I'm so grateful that you're my partner and that you're so hardworking and amazing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or wow,
I love you.
That dress is incredible on you. You know, you picked an amazing outfit for this evening.
Yeah. Or like, I noticed that last time when we were fighting, you really like held back, and you like, I remember your goal was to not do any low blows. And I noticed that you really like held it together, and we were able to like come through that fight. So I really appreciate that. Right. Another like, saying out loud, like what you're thinking and how you really feel. Because for me, I don't like any guessing games. I like to hear it like straight from the horse's mouth. Yeah. Like, and I'll believe you.
And that's how some people feel secure too, right? Like, I mean, I'm not a words of affirmation. I'm a giver of words of affirmation, but I don't necessarily need to receive it. And I think that some people, it really brings them a sense of security when they get those words of affirmation. And that's why it's involved with love, right? It's like when you feel secure, then you feel love and you feel ready to give love.
Right.
And I always look at it, I know it's kind of a rude thing, but like pumping people's tires. But like that's okay.
No.
If you need to be
Hype.
pumped up a
I
little
call
bit, that's
myself the
totally
mama
fine.
hype girl sometimes. And like,
Yeah.
you need to. And like, people love to be, hyped up or like, felt like they're needed and said out loud, like, I appreciate you, which sounds sometimes uncomfortable saying I appreciate you. But I've tried to say that more and more because it's really easy in a relationship, especially with kids, especially as if you're a stay-at-home mom, to feel underappreciated. And that's a huge indication. And something I had to communicate and still communicate a lot to Danny is like, I need to hear from you before you say all the things that I didn't get to today. I need to hear from you. Hey, babe, how was your day? Wow, you actually got to finish this, and this. That is so great. I am so proud of you. I'm a positive person. I have to hear the positive first. I do not want to hear anything negative. Like, you forgot to get this today. And like, it's not him saying that in a way that like, I'm not doing enough, but mentioning it. Because I take that very negatively, and it's super sensitive when he says I didn't do something first because he's leading with the negative. But it's like, I'm already thinking of all the million things I couldn't get to. As a mom, we make these ridiculous, unrealistic lists in our head. And it's like unrealistic in the sense that I'm going to do 3 loads of laundry and clean the bathroom. I'm going to take my kids to the park and take them to the play group. And then I'm going to make a really healthy lunch and the house is going to be clean. That is unrealistic because you're also taking care of 1 or 2 or 3 kids at the same time. So like getting realistic of what you can accomplish in the day. But we're thinking like, oh, I didn't get to this. Oh, I didn't end up getting to that play gym. Oh, I forgot my coffee date with my friend. We're already so hard on ourselves. So then to hear that from your partner, especially of words of affirmation as a way that like fills you up, is like depleting. The complete opposite, draining. It's like pulling the plug on a bath. And I'm in the habit of like, stop. You need to say something nice. Like you need to say something positive about my day. And that's a big retraining we're going through right now as a couple. It's like, it's hard to say that out loud, but I need it so that I don't feel
no, that's totally fair. And I think that's like something I'm still trying to learn about men myself. It's like, for some reason, they don't understand how simple it is. Like they really just need to be quiet. Like, because men, as we know from, like, they always want to fix things, make things better, offer suggestions, make judgments, and have these
and like work things out logically when
it
really
feels
a lot
negative.
Of the that we do is just to get it off our chest or just to hear me out so we can feel connected. That's a big thing.
Exactly. And so they just need to shut up for 10 minutes and just listen with no judgment and say, tell me more. What else? How else did that make you feel? And then you would feel amazing, right? Yeah. It's simple. And you're like, why can't you understand this? That I just need you to just be quiet and just take this in, But again, it's a retraining, it's a practice, it's conversations that you
also retraining yourself to notice. Like I keep like going 10 steps back because I feel like I can stay in my own head about things that are happening to me. But like, you have to be noticing that yourself. You have to notice that it made you feel really good when he said this, and it made you feel really shitty when he said this, and then notice that, and then act on the patterns that make you feel really good, and like bash the ones that make you feel really bad. Right? Yeah. And this is like with habits and like just talking about filling your cup and stuff, just like really intentionally taking note on things in your day. And it can be simple as like, that hurt my feelings, and like I don't want to be hearing that, to like I need to be going for runs to fill my cup, like more physical or things that you actually are doing yourself.
Yeah. And before you can do that, you have to feel like you deserve it.
Exactly.
So let's finish off the love languages. There's one more, quality time. Yeah. It's going to be hard for a lot of people because especially if you're a mom, right? Like, how are you, if you want quality time, that's going to be a tricky one.
Yeah.
With your partner, this is with your partner, right? Yeah.
I mean, if that's really important to you, I find that a lot of men say this as their second one after physical touch. They say quality time is really important to them. And it can just like, because carving out that time so intentionally to be with your partner is in itself so nice and such a beautiful thing to do, to acknowledge each other and say like, I want to make it a priority to spend, even if it's like you do 15 minutes a day and you're just like, okay, this is our quality time. We there's no phones. there's no distractions, and we absolutely have this for each other. That is so giving and so amazing. Yeah. I mean, if you might have a nanny, or you might have a babysitter, or you might have older kids, and you can do it every night. You can go and open a bottle of wine and sit in your lovely living room and lounge around and talk and watch a movie, and you might be able to do that. But if not, you might have to carve it out to be 10 minutes. But if that's really important to you, you can make it work.
Yeah, like I have quality. My second love language is quality time, and so for me personally, like I'm a very busy person as well. So when it comes to receiving that from a guy, how I love it the most is when a guy, even if it's like months in advance, he says, a month from now, I'm going to make a reservation, 2 months. I schedule it in, and just to have something to look forward to. Yeah. Like that's part of it for me, is like that he's taking the time, that he's taking the time to carve that time out is so meaningful for me. And then just the thought, the looking forward to. Right. Is I feel full of love. Yeah. Right. Yeah, totally. That I think that's super relatable as a mom right now, just because you can get into this like warp. I think it's for everyone, but you can get in this warp of like, you're doing the same thing every single day with the kids. You know, it's like day in, day out. Sometimes it's really mundane. Some days or some weeks are really tough if your kids are teething, and you just have to get through that week. And so setting like a little quality time, a little date with each other, even if that means like what Danny and I do often is like, we don't get an entire day. We don't get a dinner sometimes. We drop the kids off together, like do the daycare run. And then maybe his first meeting isn't till 10. Like we'll go on a little coffee date, or sometimes like he'll take his meeting from the car, and then I do the daycare drop off, so that like there's like a half an hour window where we can just hang out and talk in the car. And then before I have to like part ways, so he goes off to work and I'm home again. But just making
but it's
those
the
little
act of making that time. And that might be the toughest one, right? Especially if that's not how your partner like gets their love or gives it. But really knowing your value and knowing that you deserve what you want to feel from your love language. Like I know that I deserve words of affirmation. I know it. So if I have to demand it. Yeah, exactly. And if I right, and I am obviously
feed yourself first.
I don't have I have the luxury of being like, if you can't give me that attention that I need verbally, then you're not for me. And I have that luxury of saying that. Yeah. But in a partnership, especially if you have kids, that might have to be a longer discussion, and that might like your husband or your wife might be like, I can't do it. I don't have time for you. You might have to get really resourceful and really creative and be like, meet me in the office in 5 minutes. We're literally going to like sit around and play one game of Go Fish. Like, it could be absolutely anything, but it's just like you and the person spending that time for 5 minutes and carving it out. And I think that would be really special and meaningful.
But I think quality time is an interesting one, because I don't know if it lands on everyone's first or second language, or like their first ones that they would have, but it is an important factor and an interesting factor in a partnership with kids, because there's very limited, or often, unless it's a priority, like it's in your top 2 love languages, like you said, you're probably not going to make the time, or it ends up being pushed to the sidelines, which is, in my experience, like very true. And I think a lot of parents feel that. And so this idea of actually like taking quality time to have a date and to go out for dinner, it's not a priority. And it's shitty to hear that and to say it to yourself, but like I know for ourselves, like it's not a priority for us to like spend time with each other outside of the family right now. We're not going on a date, and we make excuses as to why we're not going to go on a date because of time, whatever. But I think a big piece, and this is what I want to talk about, is that you forget who you guys are in a relationship. And so I even know for Danny, we're going to try, we've kind of talked about this, but like once a month scheduling date night or whatever that looks like for a few hours without the kids as like a standing order, just like you said, Rhea. But it's uncomfortable. Like there's a lot about him now that I don't know, or like sometimes we're so tired. I need to be talking to someone to feel connected to him. Sometimes he's just so quiet.
and doesn't say anything, but he's like decompressing because he's tired. But at the same time, like, we need to put in this ample effort to make the most of that 1 hour. But the reality of it is just like not knowing this person anymore. And I think that's a reality in motherhood and as parents, is like, you kind of put off things because you don't want to explore them. But like, what might come up in that 1 hour is like, we might be fighting because there's some stuff that we haven't even talked about in years or months.
But that's okay. That's okay.
And it is okay. Yeah.
That's okay. You know, and
talk about that. Cause like, that is the issue, is like, not only can we not make time, but I believe that's an excuse. We're not making time because there's like an underlying issue. Like, maybe this is my example. Like, we had kids really early on in a relationship. We had a beautiful relationship, but we didn't get to explore it to its depths. We didn't get to go traveling around the world before we decided to take on this huge responsibility. So our relationship is actually quite in its early stages in terms of like intimacy and even like sexual nature, and like making time to have more sex. That got put on hold early, right? So like, can you guys talk about that? Because that's something that's like,
quality time is like the reason I like it so much personally. And we should also say that this, because I know some of the moms are single, so this also relates, like, if you're dating or even thinking about having another relationship 10 years from now, you still want to be having these conversations, and you might be like you having to relearn or restart. Right, you get to know who your partner even though you haven't.
Because you change, you both change through parenthood, right? So
exactly. And so quality time, the reason I love it is because it's like a time when I'm on a date with someone, I'm really getting to know them. It's that conversation, that's the deep intimacy. And without having the quality time, without having, you'll never have those conversations and get to that emotional intimacy. But I was also, one tip, I know I was listening to Esther Perel. She was doing a podcast of the therapy session between a married couple that had become disconnected. And what she suggested, which I think is a very simple, interesting tip, is to create a private email address that's between just the two of you. And you use that email address to plan your private, intimate times. It has nothing to do with your family. You never use it to talk about what the kids are doing or anything like that. Because what happens is you fall into these domestic roles. It takes the sexiness completely away. When you start looking at the guy like a dad, he starts looking at you like a mom, and you totally don't even know who each other are anymore. So how are you supposed to be intimate and have that sex? It's impossible. Right. You're mom and dad. So you need to find a way to become, okay, we're restarting. I'm getting to know my partner again. This is another, like, we'll start from square one. We'll get an email address. We'll flirt a little bit. Maybe I'll send him a sexy selfie one day. Who knows, right? And then maybe one day he's going to ask me out for a date, and we'll, that kind of thing. So you're right. You have to learn how to learn about your partner.
And I think that goes for yourself too. I think that's
yourself too. Yeah,
a lot, right? Like retraining, removing myself from just a mom, which is kind of what I thought of myself, and like rediscovering my identity as a person. Because once I started doing that, I started wearing clothes that demonstrated who I am, not just like, I mean, I am wearing sweatpants right now, but like making yourself feel better in the day. I started caring what my hair looked like a little bit more because I started feeling my worth again, and was, even though we're not going anywhere, like now I can get ready for my day. And I just felt so much more me and sexier, and felt like I wanted to connect with him more. And now we're putting those plans in place, but it really does start with yourself first. And that's what I really like, you guys always talk about. But I really I like these tips about making that time, like a standing order for a date or a private email. That's super creative.
And even just talking about love languages, like even just saying, like you have 5 minutes and you're like, oh, what's your love language? I heard about this book, blah, blah, blah. Rosa Rhea were talking about it.
We did that over coffee after the workshop.
You know?
Like, he thinks that is just like this fallacy, and I believe in it so much. I read this a long time ago. I actually bought that book for him when we were going through some struggles in our relationship. This is before having kids. And I don't think I ever gave it to him because I was like, I don't know how he's going to like think of this or whatever, but I still have that book. And then we found that quiz. So this was my next question. Like, how would someone go about finding their love language? I don't know if there's other ways, but there's a quiz, right? That's with this book.
I don't know.
I
honestly,
I only know this because I kind of knew about love languages, but one of the moms in Mom Club messaged. She's like, "Hey guys, if you don't know what your love language is, take this quiz. I'll put it in the comments here." We ended up going on a coffee date after daycare drop off, and I made him do the quiz. And like the first 10 questions, he's like, "This is bullshit. Like this is so silly." There's like 50 questions. He got pretty warmed up, and went through it. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, like, okay, I was right on this, I was wrong on this, but these are your 2 love languages. So it was interesting. Both of us have acts of service as our first ones, and physical touch were at the bottom. His is second last, and mine was last. And I was like, oh my God, that makes me feel so much better. Because I think we talked about this in the workshop, but like our intimacy isn't necessarily communicated and like brought out through physical touch. And I constantly, when I talk about sex to other girls and especially mom friends of mine, I'm sometimes left feeling like inadequate because I'm not putting more effort into our sex life. But it's coming from both ways. Like both of us aren't making the time, and it's not saying we haven't made the time to do it, but it's not like we're making it a priority. But it makes sense now because it's not one of our main,
it's not your priority. And that could honestly change.
It could change. And I think that's my like level 5. And right now we're at like level 1 and 2 about creating quality time with each other and like actually being able to like learn who we are again, because we forgot.
Absolutely. And I actually had another tip, even going back further from creating those like once a month or whatever it is, date nights.
Yeah.
Because you do have to relearn really who you are as a couple, but who you are as a person after you have kids. You might need to take that hour or that date night to yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What about, like, maybe there was something you used to love to do. Like, we don't really, Rosa and Rhea, we don't encourage you to go out for a glass of wine alone. This is not going to be productive. We encourage you, like, maybe you did skating as a kid. Yeah. Maybe you loved swimming. Yeah. We encourage you to go back to yourself in your body, right?
Totally.
And this is like, it doesn't matter what your goals are. Your goal might to never to have sex with your husband again. You might not care. And that's fine. But eventually you want to feel your worth, and you want to have like, that reciprocated in whatever way that is. But it's getting to know yourself and who you really are. A great way to do that is to spend time on your own. Like I saw that you did a dance class for your birthday. Yeah. And my friend and I just went to a dance class too, and it was like so awkward for me. But
so awkward. But it feels good.
I'm very uptight. I have a lot of walls, and I am a control freak. And so actually I used to dance when I was a kid, and dancing, I noticed how tight my body was, my shoulders. I wasn't able to really get those notes down. Okay? But it was, you could really get a good read on where you're at as far as to be. And this is not about going back to who you were. This is about just
rediscovering, like figure out what those things that light you up. It's so true.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you're not lighting up, you cannot grow and glow with someone else in a relationship. And you're not going to even want to go on a date. Some people are like, I don't even want to have time alone with my husband.
I know.
That's fine. I know. That's like,
that's kind of where I got. I think I got to that point when I was a little bit more right before meeting Danny. I was kind of like, I'm done, not interested in spending my time with any of you. I want to go hiking by myself. I want to do this. I want to get in the best shape of my life for myself. And once you got to that place, I mean, it's kind of funny because that's exactly when I met Danny, but that's what I feel like. You really need to reconnect. And and like in a relationship, it's so you're moving apart as individuals, but you're also in yourself moving apart, right? You're being segregated by your own role of being a mom, or just like being the breadwinner, like the person coming home providing and like the one scheduling. And it's so true. If you're a working mom, you're stuck in your career goals, which is something you're trying to get back to separate yourself from being a mom, but maybe those two things are still not completely labeling you correctly, right? So it's totally about reconnecting, and like, God, it's just important to get back.
If you have the goal, if you have the goal of reconnecting with your erotic self, and you want to have more sex, getting back to your own body is the first step. Like if you, like for example, even for me, I don't have a high libido as a single person, but the more I connect with my body, like, because yes, I would love to have a lot of sex. For me, yes, that would be a great goal. I see
Yeah.
that as a vision for myself. Yeah, I do.
Who doesn't? That's
But
great.
if I like, I'm not, my body is just like not like raring to go all the time. So connecting back with my body, the more I move my body, the more I can feel like that, like blossoming inside of me. And I have like more openness to, like feeling, sexy, that kind of thing. And then I'm interested in having more sex the more I get back to my body. So it's really like, and what, masturbating, right?
Masturbating,
touching yourself. Like for example, there's two frames of mind here. One, what we said earlier about like, if your husband says, like his love language is physical touch, tell him to go jerk off and choose another love language. Like honestly,
tell him to take the quiz. Maybe every guy's gonna say physical touch. Danny, I asked him that. He said physical touch because like it's what he's supposed to say, right? If you think about it in more of a society view. But like it was his last one. And that explains why we're at where we're at.
Well, people are looking at love and sex are the same.
Yeah. And the whole like bringing up intimacy, like what makes you feel most connected to your partner. And a lot of the time it's just like those physical acts of like service or gifts or whatever it is, whatever that love language is, but you need to know what that is so that you can feel appreciated. And that goes both ways. Like you could be saying, this is something I work on. I say my way of giving love is by saying things out loud, verbally communicating, I love you, like pumping him up every day. His mind is like, those are just like, that's lip service. Like that is, I don't care. He wants to see me in action. And so that's something I've learned over the course of our relationship, but like making dinner, like going out of my way to do something, like little things that I can do to make his life easier. He texts me back. And then that's when I see him showing love back to me more, when it's speaking in his love language. It makes sense. Go take the quiz, everybody. If you're watching this, we'll recap.
Well, our true, what we really believe is that you should be receiving yours first, right?
Okay,
because you're the mom already, okay? You're already taking care of the whole family. So we think that you should be getting yours first because, and because you're seeing the results. As soon as you give him what he wants and he gives you what you want. And of course, we don't want anyone to be at a standoff in the relationship, but truly as a mom, getting fed first, filling up your cup first will then start the ball rolling with him receiving his love language. And that's what our belief is, truly.
That's TMC also. Filling your cup first. You guys said something, and I think this summarizes it. You said it to us in Mom Club last week, and it's hard to hear it, but I want the moms watching this, and I'm going to be sharing this more, like say it out loud as a positive affirmation, but the most important person in your family is you. And that summarizes exactly what you're talking about. And hearing that out loud from you guys was like, is it? Well, I guess it is. Like, I'm kind of holding this thing together. And that is like the mirror that I'm looking at and being like, okay, this is everything that I'm doing for the family. Maybe I'm feeling underappreciated, but you can start with you appreciating what you do, right? And you feeling like you did something good today. You got up today. You got the kids out the door today. You made breakfast today. Like those are little wins that you can say thank you to yourself or like good job to yourself for. And if it's a positive affirmation out loud, like I need to hear it, right? I say it to myself now. I sound crazy, but I look in the mirror, I say something nice about myself and it helps me get to the next step or do the next task because I just pump myself up if I don't have someone else doing that in that moment, right? And so remembering
what we were talking about with like having our brands like so aligned is that this is the main building like block, the foundation of feeling your own value. So it starts with a flow. It starts with affirmations, words of affirmation to yourself in the mirror. You can do this. You're incredible. You're the most important part of the family. You're going to hold this family together today. You're going to do everything for everyone. You're going to feed everyone. You are so incredible. You are like beyond amazing. And then it flows into gratitude. I'm so grateful that I have the strength to hold this family together. I'm so grateful. Like I do desperation gratitude. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, no, seriously. I'm like, I'm so grateful I have legs. I'm so grateful I have a bed. I'm so grateful I have a window to look out of.
Faking it till you make it. You have to.
And
you're like slapping yourself awake. I'm awake. You do it anyways.
Yeah.
Do it
I'm
for
so
positivity.
grateful. It doesn't have to, your brain doesn't see like the difference. If you're grateful you have legs or you're grateful for something more complex, either way, your brain is just like immediately seeing all the positivity in your life. And then right away that flows in. Once you've done it, you give yourself a high five. Yeah. You got up today. Good job, Mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And exactly.
You dress your kids. Good job.
Like being able to celebrate the small wins, I think, is big, because we always, especially with social media and, you know, meeting up in mom groups, like comparing yourself to other women and other moms is inevitable. If you can just celebrate your small wins more often and feel grateful that, you know, what you have more often, you're going to remember it's just about you. It doesn't really matter what that mom is doing, how she's choosing to feed her baby, or maybe they got to go traveling and you're stuck at home, like calculating your food budget so that you guys can do the one family trip a year. Like, you don't need to compare yourself to anybody, and just being able to like be proud of yourself in that moment is going to make a huge difference. And it does. It's just, you need to create a habit of reminding yourself why you're so awesome every day.
Yeah. And it's not even, this isn't just a suggestion. This is like integral to this whole process that we're talking about. Because if you do not believe that you just like, you have to feel like you deserve the love that you're asking for.
Otherwise, you can't get it. You cannot receive it.
You cannot receive anything if you, deep down inside, don't feel like you deserve it. So that's why this positive affirmations that you give yourself, this being your own cheerleader, is so important. Because once you actually believe that, which is going to happen, you're going to be like,
affirmations and gratitude create that belief within yourself.
You're going to,
and then that pat on the back to just like solidify it. That's like the core essence of like, it's so important, and it's very easy. Actually,
it's free.
It's free. All it takes really is some consistency and discipline. Our brains play tricks on us all day long, and this is something I think we talked about with Shannon last week in the body confidence MomChat. But your thoughts, like these intrusive thoughts, come into you, and you have to make a choice, and you're making a choice every day on which one you want to believe. You can choose to believe the negative one that said you look tired and you look fat, or whatever you're saying to yourself that might be not the nicest things, or you could choose to say nice things out loud and believe them. And at first it's going to feel uncomfortable, because for some reason we're always so hard on ourselves. But make an innate choice to choose the positive one, because we know that the result of positivity is going to be constructive compared to the result of a negative one. Like that just, we know that from a logical standpoint, but when those intrusive thoughts come in, you're not making a logical choice all the time. So if you can train yourself that every time, I kind of repeated this a million times, but like just seeing yourself in the mirror this morning, I'm looking at myself, I look exhausted, I feel exhausted today, okay?
No,
but I
that's amazing.
That's what I say to myself. But reminded myself this morning of this community that I've slowly built up and is still growing. And I stopped in my tracks and I posted it on my personal Instagram, but I decided to say 3 things that I was grateful for, and reminded myself I get to meet with you guys today. I had a meeting, actually she's still at my house right now, but a meeting with a really close friend of mine. These women, you guys have been building me up throughout the year. I'm so grateful for these relationships. And then I went back to a place of gratitude just by saying, like, look at me, I organized these meetings today. I showed up today. I blocked or cleared my schedule to have these chats with you. I'm proud of myself for doing that. Like, I got my kids in childcare today on time so that I could talk with you today. And then it brought me to that place of gratitude. So that flow that you're talking about is so true.
Well,
it's
and
so
gratitude
respected.
is a garden. I know, like, this is my favorite thing to say.
I love
but it's the perfect metaphor, because as soon as you plant the seed, it will grow. You almost don't have to tend to it. It is you, as soon as you tell yourself how grateful you are, it's just like saying, like, Ford F-150. And then you drive around and you see them everywhere. And you're like, oh my God, there's so many Ford F-150s.
True.
Right?
You see a pregnant lady, and then all of a sudden all women are pregnant.
A million.
Happens a lot.
And it is what you focus on is what will grow. Okay? It's just the same as a garden. If you are tending to that plant, it will grow, it will flourish, it'll blossom. And so you have to be tending to your gratitude garden, but it's so easy. I'm so grateful to be here. That, like, you, it's that's it. Or your brain doesn't know the difference. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you. Your brain will still see that as general positivity in your life, and all those cells will immediately change. So it is like a biological thing as well, which is so incredible.
And it's a practice. You just do it, and then it becomes like it's like part of your language once again. Like I say it, like I've in the last 2 months I've been done it way better with telling people to their face.
Yeah.
You know, and thank you. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that I met you. I'm so grateful that we were able to connect.
Yeah.
You know? And
I think one thing that you just going back to comparison and competition is like your other moms, other women are not your competition. Like we are from a place of abundance, and learning love languages and sharing that information. Like you can ask your friends, hey, have you ever talked about love languages? Have you ever talked about it? What's yours? How do you like to give it? Examples. You see how different everybody is, and you immediately have compassion and empathy for them instead of competition, right? You want to change competition to compassion, and comparison to empathy. And the way that you do that is you share your differences, and that love language conversation, or even going further and saying what I like, how do I feel intimate, and what fills up my cup. Everybody is so different.
Yeah. So
okay.
Different.
The fact that you can see that in a positive way, that everybody has different motivations and different things that make them feel valued, immediately you see you're like, oh, of course she feeds her baby that, or of course she responded to me in that way. Her motivations are completely different. Her what makes her feel loved is completely different. So then you have this amazing empathy and openness and for abundance instead of closed offness for like with that competition with other moms.
Totally.
And
I think that's
so
an important thing to be reminded of. That empathy isn't developed if you're not aware or you haven't made the time to learn about somebody else. But those learnings don't just come from sitting at home or just staying on social media and staying in your bubble. Sometimes that means that you have to go out of your way to make those connections happen. And I think just staying true to this relationship and talking about, this chat about relationships, it's the same with your partner. Like I think as a mom, I'm constantly feeling underappreciated, but he's also feeling underappreciated. And that communication is the issue. We haven't communicated why we feel certain ways, but we also haven't communicated what we appreciate in the partner enough. But making the time to make that communication happen is the real reason, and that forms a connection, right? And same with a mom group. Like you can easily judge influencers on Instagram and thinking they have perfect lives, but you also don't know anything about them. And in terms of, you have to like put yourself in their shoes, but the only way you can really do that is by learning about them and learning about them in a way that you guys connect. And so when I think about why I created Mom Club, that was a huge reason. Like a huge barrier for me going out of the house and meeting with these moms is thinking like, oh, I just don't connect with them. Like I'm not like them, or they're not interested in me, or whatever I was saying to myself was stopping me from actually just being with them and learning about them. And then once I put myself out there and started meeting with them more, and I figured out what the barrier was. Like I couldn't go out of the house sometimes, so I started doing FaceTiming, and I FaceTime you guys when we do meetings, and like I feel connected to you, and then I learn about you, and then I feel like I'm valued, and vice versa, right? Like we're able to form a connection and learn about people once we actually like physically show up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think empathy, there's like a curiosity, and I think you should become curious. Like if you're single, you can become curious about any potential partnerships or about your friends, or if you're in a partnership, you become curious again about your partner. And so that sparks you to want to find out more about them and find out, ask lots of questions, and have these face-to-face conversations. And I mean, that's how I get to know people, and it's amazing.
I'm at a level 1 right now. What's the first step in us making the time for Valentine's Day tomorrow to show that we love each other? Like outline that from like level 1 to like level 5. We don't need to be having sex every single night and telling each other the enormous amounts of love we have for each other. But where can we start? Like what can these moms start with?
I mean,
that's putting you guys on the spot too much.
Great question.
Yeah. I mean, you have to know what you want. Like it's, yourself, then you know your value, and then you know what you want. Because you can't go to someone and be like, I feel underappreciated. They're like, cool, same. You have to say, this is what I need to fix that. This is like the resolution. You don't come to your partner with problems. Like come with some solutions, because really, and like I've talked about this before, I'm very passionate about this right now. Women, we ask for the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what our partners need to understand, is that we are asking for the bare minimum, what it's going to take for us to feel valued. We're not saying you have to do you have to skydive out of a plane with a piece of paper that says, I love you. You want a hug when he gets home. Just 10 minutes of venting. So I think, honestly, if you don't get that, that is what causes the resentment.
Right. Yeah.
If I asked for a guy to skydive out of a plane and he didn't do it, I probably wouldn't feel that resentful, because that's like not really reasonable. But if I ask for something reasonable that's going to make me feel valued, and that's where the resentment starts.
Honestly,
it's really bad.
Even for me personally, it's like I have really a lot of relationships, and if I say to a guy, it's so important to me to go on a date that you've planned in advance, which any person should be able to do. Even the freaking president should be able to schedule a fucking dinner once down the road.
Yeah.
If they can't do that, you know, if they're incapable or unwilling, or they feel like hesitant, it's like I have to take a look at myself.
Well, and that's very it's heartbreaking.
That's not, and I mean, that's a whole nother level, maybe.
Yeah. But I think you have to go with trust that they're going to be open to giving you that bare minimum of what you're asking for, right? And don't go in.
Do you think that bare minimum gets translated into something else because you skipped over the bare minimum? And what I mean by that is, like, maybe I just want a hug when you walk in the door, but because I'm not getting that, battery's cutting out.
We missed it.
I choose something else. I choose to ask for something like more unrealistic. Okay, like now I want my own car. Like we have a single family car. Right. Like I want my own car. Like I start saying that, but then that comes off as being ungrateful, and like I'm under appreciating what he's already doing, and it's also translating into something I actually don't really give a shit about. I just really wanted the hug.
I think in a lot of instances, we are afraid to ask for what we really, truly want. Okay? Because if you don't get it, and from that person especially, that's going to hurt.
Yeah. It does hurt.
Like, the vulnerability and the knowing you value it is why you go into it that way. And we encourage you to practice it.
Yeah.
Saying, like, I know tomorrow's Valentine's, like even starting these kind of conversations, like that could be hard. I've been in a long-term relationship. It's way easier to be silent and go about your tasks separately, or I'm going to change the kid's diaper. Cool, thanks. Glaze over it. But say, hey, I know it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. Like I've been learning a lot about love languages, and I would love if we could like spend like 30 minutes just like cuddling a little bit and sharing about our day. That's it.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Simple. It sounds so tangible. Like,
and then I think sometimes, like what you're talking about asking for your own car, it's like, you know, you're not going to get that. So it's almost like a self-sabotage.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? So practice the thing that is reasonable to ask for, because you know you deserve it. But that's why it's so important to know yourself, to know your worth, is because it's scary to have to ask for something. Yeah, it's really scary.
And you have to be kind of like, that's why this value too is so important, because the rejection, like you can get rejected in a relationship.
Rejection is so hard. And
I think honestly, especially I see this a lot, and I'm imagining it's 10 times more intense when you have kids, is the only power you might have is to reject him. Right? You don't have any energy left, and you are mad at him, and you're resentful, and you've been together for 18 years, and your power is to say no. That's all you have. Yeah. Okay? And I get it. You're starting from like minus 100. We're not even on level 1. That's why these tips are so important. That's why you got to do your flow. You got to do your words of affirmation, your gratitude, your pats on the back to yourself. You have to remember.
You're the cheerleader for yourself.
Be your own biggest fan. And that's so true. You start there. You have your value. You know you deserve it. You go in and you ask for it. And knowing, the part of the having your value, like we're skipping over this, it's knowing that you have something to offer. You're saying, I want you to make me feel valued so I can make you feel valued.
I would love to, and that's an important piece too. Like, obviously this is the very first step, but always be keeping in mind that like you really do want to see actions. You know what I mean? And I think actions are really important, and that's another way that women feel secure. Is like, I think men really are very good at giving us a lot of words and like saying they're going to do things and this and that. But down the road, we really, really know that we deserve actions and that we do expect them.
Like a big piece, you need to practice the communication. And maybe at first those dates feel sticky, they feel weird, they feel like you don't have a connection. Stick with them and keep that communication open, right? So that you can really learn about one another.
Even sitting down and having the conversation, what's your love language? This is mine. That is extremely powerful. That is the work. That's it. It's scary to do that. It's scary to ask for what you want and to offer this experience. But that is somebody who you've been so vulnerable with already, right? You've had a child together. So remember that. Remember everything you have to offer and how valuable you are, and how much you deserve what you're asking for. And remember that just sitting down together and making that time for each other is the exact thing that is going to help speak each other's languages. Yeah. So it feels like the beginning, but it is,
there's a lot in that. Yeah, that in itself is an action. Just like sitting down together is showing that spending time together is worthy and worthwhile for both of you. So,
and maybe not as mom and dad, right? Not as mom and dad, as two adults, right? Who are trying to get to know each other. You know, again.
Yes.
Would you set that in like words at the beginning? Because I think it's really easy. Like we go on dates and we end up looking at pictures and talking about our kids just out of habit, like bringing us back to the two individuals.
Yeah.
Like, would you set that? How would you set that tone?
You can talk about your kids. You love your kids. You absolutely love your kids. And I wouldn't put too much pressure on anything. If you're going on a date, you guys are not having sex after. That's not on the table, right? There's no end game. The goal is to get together as adults, two adults who want to go on a date.
And I think that's true. Like, I think it also goes back kind of what I'm referring to is like that reconnection with yourself. That's why that's the first step, is because then you can be like, oh, what are your latest hobbies?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if your partner said, what are your latest hobbies? What hobbies have you been doing?
Well, I do like dancing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what I was like sort of referring to. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right. What fills your cup up? What blows your hair back?
Yeah.
Whatever. You know.
Yeah. And that's incredible.
Well, it feels like you have something to talk about other than the kids again, because you actually do. You care about what you're doing. You're passionate about what you're doing. You remember what you're doing. Like you talking about going to that dance class, similar thing for me. Like I recently started dancing again because I used to dance when I was a kid. I used to perform all the time. I loved it, and it makes me feel good and back in my body, and it makes me feel sexy again, and it's relearning about myself. So now I can share that with him when we have these conversations. So
exactly.
So and then look at your kids. You're gonna miss them. You love your kids. That's fine too. Maybe it's terrible and you have nothing to talk about. And then you go home and you're like, well, shit. But do you want to keep trying? Yeah, do it again. Try again.
Do it again.
Making space for anything to happen, but having the intent to come together as two adults on a date. And guess what? If you're not getting back to your body, if you're not filling your own cup, you might not have anything to talk about besides your kids. Yeah. Okay? So that's why we're saying you need to do that first. Because you, like, if he's like, oh, what have you been up to? And you're like, well, I've been changing diapers.
Haven't you been seeing
like,
what I'm doing?
Nothing,
Yeah,
babe.
totally.
So you might need to realize, like, actually, I'm not ready for this date because I don't have anything to talk about besides being a mom. Yeah. I need to go be my own person first, go to that dance class, and then I have something, because talking to your like partner, that's exciting. Dating him, you guys fell in love for a reason. But of course, if you only have resentment and you're only tired and you don't have anything to give, then maybe a date isn't right. That's not going to just change things and like change the dynamic.
To me, for the greater part of this year, up until now, I don't feel like, or didn't feel like going on a date. I didn't feel like having sex because I wasn't I wasn't giving anything to myself. And now I'm finally at that place where like, this is why you're here. Like I'm exploring what it's like to be back in touch with my body. I'm exploring what does a once a month date like night look like. I'm actually curious about it because it's what I kind of need now.
You might have to say to your partner, tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and I really just need you to take the kids for 2 hours while I go do whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
That's
like
okay,
that
right?
what you need.
Yeah, you should definitely do that. Because he's
like
there,
that.
like he knows how to take care of your kids. He's the dad. He's
It's
the
the
best
day of
babysitter
love, and
you
loving
could
yourself is love too. It's not
Absolutely
with somebody else. I noticed a